Alright, so as I started out here, referred to the rules again. I had it backwards about the supply. The units have to be within 5 hexes of the headquarters. The headquarters has to be within 10 hexes of a city, a supply city. So for example, this one was back here, no good. There's the 15 there, so I moved him there, which is a lot less than 10 hexes, and then that covers the terrain all the way up into here even. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. He can even make it over to there. So that covers 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. That covers those 11 because that's a 15. It also covers 1, 2, 3, 4. It also covers this guy down here. And what we have over here, there's our headquarters, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 away. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's 4 away from that. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 9, 10. So that works out for those units there. I think I just bumped that guy ahead, put him right in the middle, so there was no chance. This guy was good. He didn't have to move. And this headquarters there was good as well. He can still reach most of the front lines to there, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yeah. And that's the thing. So being able to trace a direct path back to your headquarters, or being, this is the other thing, or being directly on the city like this unit is. He's perfectly fine right there. He's in supply. The Finnish can never be considered out of supply when they're in Finland. If they cross the border into the USSR, I think that they have to be able to trace a supply line back to a Finnish hex without a Soviet cutting off the route. So that's going to be a situation in up here where it's a little more open terrain. Even if they do jump back and the Soviets are able to come around behind them a bit, they'll still be able to trace a supply line back to Finland. So that's very important to keep in mind for this game. I'm really going to have to remind myself to check that supply. What it says is it suggests that you just double check your supply at the beginning of every movement phase. Just trace it all and map it out and make sure that you stay within that supply. Now, these headquarters do have a 2 hex movement allowance, so that'll help being able to follow in a little bit, but we'll still have to be able to trace from them 10 spaces back to a city. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, that can bring us all the way up there, actually. I'm just thinking for if we break through here, going towards Oulu, that could be something. And I guess that's kind of what the Finnish ski units will be good at, is creating a barricade between the headquarters and a city. It has to be a, same as on the Finnish side, on the Soviet side, it has to be basically an uninterrupted, straight ahead pass right to a city, not having to go through. So if you have to go through any Finnish units, then it makes you cut off, basically. A whole lot of stumbling over words there, but I hope you get the picture. So other than that, we're just in turn 1. The Soviets go first. I have done the reinforcement phase. There's nothing to do here. I was just getting into the movement phase, so I will continue that, maybe play a couple of turns and come back and fill you in on what's been going on. Alright, I couldn't resist. I've turned the chits that I'm moving I've turned them just to help me keep track. It's going to be slow going these early stages. It usually is. I find in these games the first handful of turns are really slow going once you're kind of getting your feet wet and establishing a plan, establishing just the game in general. So I couldn't leave Petsamo alone there. So I've advanced and I've engaged in combat in 2 areas. So those 2 units are going to combine against him. This 114 against the 113, which is only a 1-to-1 odds, which isn't. It's attacker eliminated for a 1 or a 2. Attacker retreats for a 3 or a 4. Or sorry, I was looking at the wrong one. A 1-to-1 is attacker eliminated for a 1. Attacker retreats for a 2. No effect for a 3. EX is an exchange for a 4. And then a DR is defender retreats on a 5 or a 6. So you'll notice that there's some results that are in parentheses. Those have to do with these units over here, these Finnish units that are on the fortification line there. You read those results when you're in battles over here, so I'll get to that in one moment. So that was my plan up here. Start advancing and at least get some troops in line. Even if we sacrifice that 114, maybe we cause him to retreat, which would in effect have him retreat. It might actually eliminate him because we can't go into Norway and they can't stack. Now I think I read a rule that if they stack, they basically get a free movement to the back. I'd have to look at that again. I think it had to do with zones of control. If they had to retreat and it was into another zone of control or impassable terrain, then they were eliminated. But they might be able to, if it's friendly units there, they might just jump back too. Anyway, over here, similar idea, just advancing. Which leads me into these situations. I kind of had a look at the chits. Even though I do have some 20s in there, I have a 6 in there, I have a 5 attack. Because they're on those hexes, it really only gets me odds of 2-to-1, which if we look at the 2-to-1, the parentheses are no effect, and then an exchange is the best that I can get, which is they lose some, but I also lose some. Attacker retreats, no effect, exchange, no effect, exchange, exchange. So not that great. It only becomes maybe more worthwhile in the 5-to-1 and 6-to-1, where you're looking at defender eliminated on a 6, and then defender eliminated on a 5 or 6 at 6-to-1 odds. That's quite a jump to get there though, and I just would rather, especially the beginning of the game, I don't really want to take a chance. So for now, I have a feeling these are going to be standoff points. I don't see the Finns moving from those spaces, because as soon as they do, they lose that benefit, which then decreases their odds of surviving. So my thought was, at least if we could break through, maybe some units could kind of come around the back here and we can attack them on 2 fronts. I don't really know. The other side of it is, I don't know how worthwhile it is to engage in those combats. They're more of a standoff and a kind of last line of defense, you know. But, you know, there is quite a few points up there. I don't know. Either way, we'll see how it goes. So those are going to be 2 areas to really watch. And I'm going to have to remember to keep my headquarters in with their groupings there. If I do send one off over this way, I'm going to have to make sure that he stays within that 10 hex line of the city. Alright, let's do some combat. I'm going to double check. I believe you can do 2 units versus 1 when they're like that. I know that they have to attack because they have to attack. So the Soviets have to attack when they're in a zone of control of an enemy hex. The Finns are the ones that have a choice. I can also read about retreat, because maybe the Finns retreat at this point. Instead of losing some units, maybe their best option is to retreat, so they can kind of stand by until game turn 2, where they get some reinforcements. Either way, we'll have a closer look at it, and I'll come back and show you what happened. A couple of notes about the combat. I like to fill this kind of stuff in as I'm discovering it again and showing the practical examples. The only Finnish units that can retreat are the 113s and the 003s that you see there. Those are the only 2 units that can retreat. No other Finnish units can retreat before combat. The Finnish player can only retreat before combat if the retreating units begin the retreat within Finland and are north of row A. So they have to be in Finland, they have to be north of row A, and they can only be the 113s or the 003s. The Soviets, the only units that can retreat are the headquarters, which is that 012 right there. Those are the only units that can retreat. Now, as far as retreating rules, the hex to which the units retreat may not be in enemy zones of control. They can't be in impassable terrain, and they can't retreat violating the stacking limitations, which north of A is there's no stacking. So basically, this one here has the option to retreat. This one here does not. He can't retreat onto that hex. He can't go into Norway, and he can't retreat going forward. It's into zones of control regardless, but it's also a mountain terrain which is impassable. So this one is going to be locked in combat regardless, which isn't so bad because it's a 1-to-1. This one does have the option to retreat, and he probably will. As I said before, it's in his best interests, I think, to kind of save his pieces. So what happens when a unit retreats? Well, it looks like this. So the unit retreats, and just for the sake of making sure that no screw-ups happening, that happens. Now, the attacking player has the option to advance. Again, because we're dealing with stacking limitations here, only one of these units could advance to that terrain, because that's a mountain and that's a mountain, so they can advance to that. It would mean that they can't attack, so it would look something like this as well. What we would do is just flip it. Oh, I'm surprised. I didn't actually notice that. It's too bad that wasn't green on the back side. Anyway, so that's what happens there. That's what that might look like. I'm pretty sure that's what I will do, but just for an example, that's what it would look like. That is all that I found out about that, I believe. Yeah, that's it. So there we go. There's a little nugget of info for you. Well, wouldn't you know it? The 114 there is an NKVD unit. NKVD units cannot attack Finnish units while they're in Finland. So they can't attack across the border, which actually leads to another point of, can they even cross the border? Can we even cross the border? I'm going to read that. That'll be the next thing I check into. So as usual, it's the thing, 4 pages of rules, and I'm kind of floundering already on game turn 1. I won't try to take it to heart. We'll just kind of slog on through. So that leaves us there. Now, I don't remember where that guy came from. I suppose I could just check the tape. Let's go to the replay, but I don't think it'll harm much either being there. I don't know, I'm such a stickler for rules. Sometimes I might have to figure out where the hell that guy came from. I have a feeling he came from that 642 hex, which would change that whole thing. Anyway, the other thing that I found out reading that is on these Finnish fortification hexes, not only do you read the parentheses, but the Finns' defense is doubled on those as well, which makes it even less appealing to attack those units. Not only are the odds not that great till you get to 5 to 1 or 6 to 1, you're dealing with much higher defense than was expected. So for example, what do we have here? That one has a defense of 1. This one has a defense of 6. So that's a defense of 14 right there. And if I attack it with this, which is 26, that only brings it to 1 to 1, which is just, it's not even an option at this point. So it just solidifies my view of that being a standoff for now until some more units get in there. Maybe another 20 gets in there and we try to change the odds a little bit. That's the Mannerheim fortification there, those 4. I don't believe these are called, yeah, no, that's called something else, this defensive line. If they lose all 4 of those hexes, the Finns no longer have the option of retreating in a battle. If at any point during the game after that they gain even one of those hexes back, they also gain the right to use their retreat again. So that's another reason why that's such an important section to kind of take over. Alright, so that deals with that. NKVD are the 114, so he's back there. There's no other ones in that front line, so I can do some attacks here. We'll see. Again, maybe the Finns do a little bit of a retreat. NKVD units are prohibited from leaving the USSR. So instead of messing the whole thing up and retracing steps, I just moved him back over the border onto the Russian side of things, and that kind of takes care of that area. So we've had one retreat, no other attack. There's only kind of one direction for them to get in at Petsamo, and it has a couple of units there. So I guess the Finns could come in with a 1, but they do have some reinforcements coming in soon, so that might offer them some chance to attack. There we go. So that's the limitations, and I think that takes care of that. Okay, let's have a look at the board after that attack round has gone on. Nothing changed. We just flipped these units back over, straightened everybody out. No advancements were made, nothing happened there. Here's where a bit of the action happened. We had 2 units, 2 Finnish units eliminated. One of them was in that hex right there, and he was attacked by these 2 units. It came up as a defender retreats. There was nowhere for him to retreat to, so if there's nowhere to retreat to, that's an elimination. This unit had advanced, but when that attack had happened, it was another Finnish unit that was there. This 212 was here, fighting against the 113. We got a 5 on our roll there at the 2 to 1 odds, and that comes up as a defender's eliminated. So it's not an automatic advance, even when a defender retreats. It outlines all of that here really nicely, actually. Maybe it's a good time to talk about this. One of the other things I really like about this particular map is I have no problem. As a matter of fact, I think it's beautifully done with all the extra info laid out on either side, no less. So on my side, I have my combat result table, and then if there was another human being playing on this side, they have their own combat result table on their side. The terrain effects. I love the way that it's laid out with the map in the middle there. But my point was that it specifically tells you, for example, all defending units retreat 1 hex. Defender's choice of retreat hex. Attacker may not advance. When there's an elimination, that's when the attacker can advance. So it's good. I mean, that worked out really well. We took him down a couple of units. I mean, we're kind of overpowering him at this stage, which isn't to say that that's not going to change, although a lot of those units that are coming in on turn 2 for him are those ski units, which don't have an attack or a defense. A note about those: if they ever do get into combat, you don't roll a dice, you don't do anything. It's an automatic defeat. You automatically just kill the unit. So they're more kind of for mischief making, I suppose. And then these, of course, nothing changed. You saw my explanation earlier. So that's where we sit here. I may just keep this guy here just to kind of hold that as a last resort. Have both of those units. That's actually a good point. I should have maybe advanced that guy to kind of follow in with the headquarters there. That was an oversight on my part. But this 642 I'm going to keep right on the city hex, because he's in supply as long as he's on that hex. There we go. Soviet turn finished with minimal heartache. So I'll switch sides and we'll check out what the Finnish forces are going to do. Welcome to the other side of the board. Here's my dilemma. No dilemma here. This is going to stay, and this is going to stay. I think it's just too early. We're only in game turn 1 of 10. I really just don't want to move off these hexes. I want to keep that bonus of doubling the defense and kind of holding those lines there. I just don't see any benefit in doing much else. And had I known that in the future, I might not stack as many of these units here as I had. I'd probably bring some up here, bring some over here, or move them around, or even bring them kind of in here. So those two are going to stay. Let's skip that one for a second. These two, again, I don't see any point. If I move that 113 into the hex, here, let me use my pointer here. If I move this one into that space, the only thing that it's going to do for me is cause a hell of a lot of pain. It gives me a 1-to-1 odds on that, a 1-to-2 odds over there, a 1-to-4 odds over there, which is even worse. I don't really see the benefit. I guess I could go 1-to-1 and see if I could make him retreat, which in fact would kill him because there's no room to retreat. But ultimately, what am I doing? I mean, I'm just setting that 113 up for attack. I suppose the flip side to that is they're probably going to push through in there. I imagine that 114, or even that, sorry, not even that, the 642 unit there is going to move across. The 114 can't because it's that NKVO there. So they're going to be pushing through that channel anyway. I guess these two units here could attack that, which would be 2-1, and maybe have a chance to force him to retreat, or better yet, kill him, who knows. So, I don't know, maybe it is worth it to just kind of get in there and fight. Now, the biggest issue for me is this right here. I've got a couple of choices. Ulu is plus 30. It's where these units are heading. Even if I was up against another person, I could only imagine that that's what they're going to do. They're going to push up there. So my initial thought is that all three of these units make their way to the rail line, follow the rail line all the way along because they can move on it for free. Put one unit here, one unit there, and one unit there, and just start to fortify this Ulu. Next turn I get some reinforcements come in. I could throw another couple at it as well and kind of start to hold the line there. Is one possibility. My other thought was to move these units around to this side, because my worry is that if I just abandon everybody, it just gives them free rein to come across here and maybe sneak in the back door, so to speak. So what if I placed two units there and started to attack? Because it would be a 4-1 odds against that one. It's going to be a retreat or elimination, more than likely, not a guarantee. But then at least I establish a line there to cause them a bit of grief coming around here. But the flip side is, does it really cause them much grief? You know what I mean? A couple of units come in and start picking my guys away with their 2-1 odds, actually. So I don't know, my initial thought is to just retreat back to Ulu, await reinforcements, don't lose any more people on this front line, and just get ready to fortify this plus 30, and hopefully by that time they'll have dispersed a little bit. Some units will go that way, some units will come towards me. I'll have reinforcements where I can fortify over there and fortify over here and a little bit over there. I don't know, I mean, again, we've got these ski units in, so this is where these games become like a game of chess for me to some degree. How you're best going to utilize your pieces and looking at the long game as opposed to the short goals. And barricading there seems like a short-term goal, whereas this seems like a much better long-term. So maybe I will do that. So there we go, there's me talking out my ideas to a camera while I sit on my own in my house here. Yeah, we'll come back and we'll see what happens. Alright, a couple of things here. So I decided to advance that one unit. He is going to attack the NKVD, which I believe is legal. These two units are going to attack that 212 there in hopes of driving him back, but preferably eliminating. Now here's where it got interesting here. So rail movement is restricted due to an enemy's zone of control. So this 212 has a zone of control of all 6 of these hexes, one of which is a rail line. When you move to a rail line, let's say you move from there to there, it costs you 1 movement point, or whatever the terrain cost is. then it's another movement point to kind of hop on the train, so to speak. Then you can move along the rail line freely. When you, what's called detrain, if you want to hop off the rail line, say onto that hex, that costs you another movement point. The restrictions are, if you follow a train line, as soon as you enter an enemy's zone of control, you immediately stop and you're basically detrained, so you're off the train and you're locked in this position. Now, because you're the Finnish, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to fight, but in this instant I'm going to, with those 223 units there, to hopefully drive him back, but better off eliminate him so I can continue on the rail line to Oulu. So I couldn't do that in this turn because of that one unit exerting its zone of control on the rail line. You have to have free movement to be able to do that. Now, that said, I do have a couple of these 113s that really aren't doing too much. I guess they're basically, what they're doing is they're adding to the 6, making it 7, making that a 14. So it would be a 12 attack instead of a 14. Oh, and a defense of, yeah, the defense of the same thing. It's a 14 defense right now. It would make it a 12 defense if I did move, because they are on a rail line already. If you start your movement phase turn on a rail line, you don't have to pay that 1 to get on the train. Basically, you're considered already on it, so you can move freely. It's only when you jump off and move to another rail line. Now, it doesn't specify, like, is this one rail line, you jump off to move to this one, pay another one to move to this one. It doesn't specify. It just talks about continually moving along the train tracks. So I take that as, if I wanted to make it to Oulu with these, as long as it's connected, which it is, I could make it there and send those reinforcements out, leaving behind my stronger units to defend that line still. So many decisions, so many decisions. See, there's a 442 over there. Yeah, it's 112, so that would bring him to there. I could move some towards the tracks too, I guess, is the other thing. That's quite a lot of units across the border there, though. I don't know if I want to thin out that side too much. If anything, I would just take those 113s and move them to Oulu. So there we go. That's basically what I've done. We'll come back. All right, quite the results here. 3 Soviets gone, 1 Finn unit gone. The Finnish unit came from here. We attacked across. There was no terrain effects on combat on the swamplands, and it was an exchange result. So the defender loses a unit, and then the attacker loses a unit or units equal to the defender's defense rating, and you don't take anything else into account. You just take the face value of the chit. So it was a 1, so we lost a 1. Then this 212 was attacked and successfully beaten. So I advanced this 113 up ahead to kind of offer another barricade before they get through. And then over here we had this other 212, which started off its life there. So we had 2, 4, and 5. I moved the 113 from over here to help in the fight so we could have 5-to-1 odds. It was an elimination, and then he was able to advance 1 hex. So he advanced there to at least offer something if they want to get into that hex to barricade, to exert their zone of control on the rail line again. Because my hope is that we can hold them off at least till next turn, where these guys get a chance to retreat or move along. We'll see how that comes into play, because next turn is the Finnish reinforcements, so we'll see what happens there. As you can see, I moved these 1-1-3s and kind of surrounded Ulu there. I had taken 2 off of here and 2 off of there. I know I said I wasn't going to, but god damn it, I did it anyway. I really feel like this needs to be defended because it's those 30 victory points. I believe in the outcomes, let's have a look here. A score of 101 or more is a decisive Soviet victory. 81 through 100 is a substantive Soviet victory. 61 through 80 is marginal Soviet victory. So even at 61 points, and I think Callendale mentioned this as well too, with that being 30 and Petsamo being 30, which they already control, that gives them just about a victory already. So I want to hold off on this. Then there's a bunch of terrain here where there's +5s as well. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, it's looking like it might shape up that they're going to come from these northern sections down in and come in from behind them. Yeah, we'll see how that plays out. One last thing, I guess that also signifies the end of the turn. So nothing more to do except advance the blank counters so we can keep track. That's probably it for me tonight. So maybe I will add this to a finalized video, and we'll see you tomorrow.